Michael, hello.
Hi, it's wonderful to be with you today.
It's really nice to be with you. You are the co-founder and the CEO of Waggl, which is committed to employee voice. Can
That's
you can you
yeah,
explain what employee voice is and why it was imperative to found a company to focus on it?
yeah. I think companies are going through so much transformation and change, and so the company has a need to be on the pulse of their employees, right? What are they thinking? How are they feeling? What insights are they gleaning? So there's this huge need. I think the research says industries now are being transformed every 3.1 years. So tremendous organizational need to listen to its people. It's like fundamentally core asset. And on the flip side of it, employees have this need for belonging, and they have a need to be included, and they have a real desire to have a voice. So, I've been saying in some of my recent talks that I don't think you woke up this morning wanting to fill out a survey, right? Like, I don't think anybody gets out of bed being like, this morning I hope my organization sends me a survey. But they do get out of bed and they want to know that their opinions matter, that their insights matter, and that the things that they're learning and discovering on a daily basis are being put to work towards improving the workplace and improving their own conditions around work. So, we recognized this about 5 or 6 years ago, and we launched a company. We've now had our 5th-year anniversary, and it's just been a really exciting ride. We've gone from a few people to now a big team of people and wonderful customers working on solving this challenge.
And what have you learned about listening along the way?
I mean, we learned a lot. I think there's like some base level values that need to be in place to listen, right? And, I think at its base, there needs to be trust and respect to have kind of mutual conditions on both sides. The organization needs to respect the needs of the employee, and the employee needs to respect the needs of the organization. And that sets up the conditions, I think, for a listening or a healthy dialogue. I think there's a lot of things out there that aren't necessarily honoring that respect on both sides of things. So I think that's one learning. And the other learning is it challenges the leadership paradigm and model, right? So I think the traditional model was like, as a leader, I need to have all the answers. It's command and control, and I'm going to kind of tell people what to do. But today's leader is more, the need for the leader is more of that of humility. Like, hey, we're entering the fourth industrial revolution. There's incredible knowledge workers out there on the front lines. You guys have the answers. I just need to be humble to recognize that and be able to ask the right questions. And then, again, be humble to bring people together and have an authentic dialogue to surface up those answers. But then again, the need for action is so pressing because of how fast things are changing. We do need to get down to a decision. So it's not just all conversation. We fundamentally believe that listening in the organizational context without action is a miss, right? So that's kind of where things need to rest.
I have to ask, was this idea born out of a bad experience?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'd say it's born out of set of experiences, right? There's like market-driven insights, experience of what we're hearing from HR people. But early in my career, I was a financial analyst, and it was a Fortune 1000 company, and it was a tough job. I'm working late into the evenings. It's 11 o'clock at night, and my manager walks by my desk, and I'm like, hey, I'm having a little trouble getting this acquisition that we made to trial balance. And he kind of leans over and he says, that sounds like a personal problem, right? And so, in that moment, somebody straight out of college looking for a little bit of guidance and support in a like really big job, and not getting support, not being heard, and fortunately the phone had rung a couple weeks prior, and it was my best friend's father who had done leadership development and executive and organizational change. He's written books by McGraw-Hill. His name's Cal Wick, and he said, I'd love for you to come help me start this company to help drive action and change after leadership programs. So I'm like, here, on one hand, I got this guy who doesn't, says that this is a personal problem. On the other hand, I have this person who believes in like individual development and improvement, and that was kind of the start to this whole journey, really. The choice was obvious, right?
I'm impressed by what Waggl does in terms of asking more quantitative questions and putting up dashboards and enabling quick data capture. But I'm also impressed that you can use the tool for storied questions. Can you tell me a little bit about the open-ended use of Waggl?
Yeah, that was really the genesis of the insight. The context that we started working under Waggl was within the Fort Hill and that story that I shared around Cal Wick. And we knew that HR people needed a lightweight way to get feedback in lots of different places beyond just learning and change initiatives. And the insight that we had is the power of a story conveys a lot more insight than a measure. Measures are important. They end up, in the boardroom, on dashboards, and, they're important, but they're not necessarily vehicles for change. The change lives in the story. So the first embodiment of that was share a story of how you've applied learning or how you've done something from this change initiative in a way that's had business impact. And rather than just collect all that information like a survey modality, let's share it all. Let's let everybody learn from it, and let's let everybody vote on it. So that was kind of the initial root of Waggl, and then we've applied it to lots of other things. And primarily, now we focus it in on, we want to give people an inclusive voice on the topics that matter, right? So we want to open up their stories around things like, where are we going? That's our vision. How are we doing getting there? That's our execution. How are we working well together? That's culture. And do we have the right experience for our employees? So I feel like those are the topics that matter to all employees across all organizations. And beyond measurement, we want to give people the chance to have a voice and a dialogue around those things. That's transparent, that's engaging, that lets them see each other's stories and vote on it. And that goes back to my story about a survey. Like, we don't necessarily want people to, we know people aren't waking up wanting to fill out a survey, but they want a little bit more exchange and dialogue, and that's what we're trying to give them through the platform.
It's really interesting. How are those values of exchange and dialogue through the platform, how do you make them come alive within the team at Waggl?
Yeah, that's a great question, and something we're really proud of. We've been awarded recently, we've been on a nice run here the last 6 months. We were awarded like Employee Engagement Platform or Vendor of the Year, Great Place to Work by several groups, and just yesterday we came out on Inc. 5000's list of fastest growing organizations on 151st on that list. And that to me is really meaningful that we're able to manage the balance. I feel strongly that it's important to have equal regard for people as we do performance. And we really try and eat our own dog food. I think a better example is like drink our own champagne, right? So we use Waggl internally, and it's easier said than done, right? You need to be willing to be vulnerable. Like, here's some questions. It's going to be transparent. Don't know what the answers are, but I'm going to be good with whatever comes back from the spirit of betterment, right? And inclusion. Let's get everybody's voice in on this, and let's keep making this place better. So, we use Waggl very regularly internally, and it's important for me to be able to model the process to bring everybody together, say like, here's what we said, put it up on the screen, here's what I've taken away from it, but collectively, what do we want to do about it? And I think that's the powerful shift. When I release the word I, like, it's not what am I going to do about it? It's like, what are we going to do about it? That's when I think it becomes less about me and more about us, and quite powerful.
Michael, on LinkedIn, you wrote an article, or I saw something that you had been interviewed, and you used the term active inquiry. Can you unpack that for me?
Yeah, I think going back to that example of like how leaders need to shift their toolkit, it's not good enough to check in on a survey once a year or sit down and have a performance evaluation once a year. I think active is one dimension of that is frequency. Like we need to increase our frequency by which we're asking questions. I think that's one component of it. But I think there's the other component of it is like just what we're doing with it, right? How are we connecting with people in a way that's real, or are we able to suspend our opinions and our judgments and really come and listen authentically so that we can get net new information, and then at some point make a decision to move forward. So I think like really challenging the frequency and the way we listen has been a big insight for us over the last few years.
Very cool. Thank you. You also talked about how building a connected culture takes planning and intention. And at my firm, we focus a lot on intentionality and invitationality. And I was wondering if you could talk more about intention in your communications business.
Yeah. I mean, these things don't happen by mistake, right? You have to value them and you have to prioritize them because there's thousands of things you can do. And I think, we start with a base of what are our values as an organization. And we need to make sure that those values are reinforcing like our point of view of what we want to create. So I think the first intention is like defining the values, getting everybody to feel a shared sense around those values, and then have those values really tie out with our point of view, right? Like we believe the world's going to look this way in the future. Therefore, we need to embody these things to cause that to happen. And we need some level of patience, right? Like I think we're still ahead of the market readiness. Like the market is ready to be able to send a quick survey and have machines and algorithms analyze it and consultants make recommendations and cascade it from the top. The market's not necessarily ready to be inclusive with everyone's voice, and it's not ready for full transparency, and it's not ready for that level of empowerment. I think a lot of what we're finding, a lot of organizations are, but it's coming towards us. So we need to have intentionality that we're not going anywhere. We really have strong convictions about this. We're building it the right way, and I think that just takes a lot of alignment throughout as a through line all the way up to the board level and the investor level side of our business. Alignment is key.
Thank you very much. That you've given me a lot to think about there.
Yeah.
When I came to you and you got my invitation to speak about speaking and listening, what did you think?
I mean, initially I thought like, what a great opportunity because it's so aligned with what we're doing, right? So we're trying to give employees a voice. We're trying to model these things really well internally. And I thought to be able to connect and share our insight, but also, this opportunity has given us a chance to learn from your insight. It's what a cool opportunity. And we're super grateful that you're going to be participating in our harvest event coming up here in a month. And just think you're going to add so much to that conversation. So thank you.
Anything else about speaking and listening, how do you listen for a living? How do you listen to yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think with so much happening in the world, you have to find those ways to recharge, and you have to find those ways to look within and reflect. And so my form of that, like this morning, I took the dog and went for a jog, and you make connections and associations when you have a little bit of downtime. So I think finding those moments of downtime, I enjoy fly fishing. So when you're standing in the middle of a river in Montana and your cell phone's not going off and you're just 10 and 2 casting in that dry fly, like that gives you the opportunity to make connections and associations. I also make wine, so I do that as a hobby. And there's a fun Fast Company piece that was done on that a few years ago about hobbies that help you slow down. So that's that's a very patient process. So, in the spirit of all the chaos, looking for those moments to be able to slow down. And I think there's also people in your life that help you slow down and plug into. So for me, and everybody's got their own thing, could be meditation, could be any number of things, but those are my connection points to be able to recharge and reflect and listen to myself, because I feel like that's the base level. Like, if as a leader, like, for you to really master the skill of listening, it starts with being able to listen with yourself. And that's easier said than done. So it's, by no means have that all figured out, but it's certainly a journey I'm on.
Thank you. Any other thoughts about speaking and listening, or moments that have been breakthroughs for you?
Well, I feel like there's a breakthrough every time we use Waggl, and we do this internally. That, for example, we're a communications organization, and in our pulse, it came back that we're scoring low in this aspect of communication. We do weekly meetings, all company. We do, monthly transparency jams, share the financials. Like, I feel like we're using Waggl. Man, I feel like we're doing a great job there. But it's like, really understanding, yes, you're communicating well in these areas, but we're moving so fast. And if we could get a little bit more here and a little bit more here. So, like, even when you think you're doing something really well, I think it's important to be able to check back in on that and have that humility and be like, we can always do better on these things. So I think that's my big takeaway, is like, this is kind of a never-ending journey of continuous improvement, and the benefit is always on the other side of the effort.
Thank you, Michael. That's exactly it. It's that being a communications company and thinking about communication that has driven me to this active inquiry. And I thank you for your honesty about it.
Yeah, thank you. And it's exciting. I think we're just getting started. We don't have it all figured out, but I know our work has a big impact. And we do work at the University of Colorado Health Systems, and they'll share their story at Harvest. But they ask employees questions about stuff that they care about. Those employees get to sit down and have a dialogue with their manager about the insights. They agree to take action, and they repeat it. And our customer there says, everybody's trying to measure engagement and manage engagement, but like that process, having authentic inquiry, authentic dialogue with the leaders, taking real action, holding ourselves accountable that is happening, our engagement scores have gone up, our patient satisfaction scores have improved. Like, in its heart, like, that process is actually engaging. And engagement. So it's pretty exciting, and we're just excited to be able to do it at more and more scale. I think that's the opportunity we have. Like, imagine when we can impact millions of managers to sit and listen to his or her teams, and the impact that has on their people, and then the impact that those people take forward into their lives and into their families. Like, the residual impact of having a respectful dialogue in the workplace is huge, and that's what gets us fired up every morning.